You're listening to the Best Company Show, Southern California's business podcast, focusing on topics of interest to CEOs and managers of middle market companies, with your host, Robert J. Curtis.
And welcome again to the Best Company Show. I am your host, Robert J. Curtis, and I have with me a very special guest this morning, Chris Ploessel of REDNIGHT Consulting.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you here. And we have a lot of interesting things to talk about. There are some things coming up in the news, and we'll get into that a little bit later with the hot seat question. But also, before we get into that, I want to find out a little bit more about what you do, Chris. Okay, let me do a little bit of introduction about the little bit that I know about what you do. Actually, I do know a fair amount. I've seen it go on, but I don't know the inside scoop about what you do. But you're a technology consulting company. You have some pretty decent-sized clients that include national restaurant chains and other kinds of businesses, private equity groups, and a lot of different big and small companies. And you focus on web-based services, right? And you integrate, whether it's telephone services, whether it's technology data transfer, managing systems, things like that. It's you really focus on the web-based side of things. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so we really focus on being a cloud-based IT consultant. And the industry name for what we do is called a managed service provider, or an MSP. And in that realm of business, what we try and do is for the small and medium-sized businesses, take over and run their IT for them. And we have a cloud focus. And what that means is we try not to buy, build, and run servers on premise for businesses anymore. We really believe that that's the way of the past for running businesses, and new competition that's coming into the market, businesses that are growing or expanding geographically want the flexibility and agility to be able to grow on the fly with their technology. So we've got frontline tech support folks, we've got engineers, and really focus on the servers, the applications, and the communication methodologies for businesses.
Okay, so there's a lot of big words, and it means a lot probably to a lot of technology people, but a guy like me who's more people management focused, I do have at least a peripheral view or a very superficial understanding of technology and what. Could you drill down and give me some examples of how people are using this stuff and what's unique that you're putting in and unique ways that your companies and your clients are using it?
Yeah, the historical way of running a business's computers or IT was to have some servers sitting somewhere, whether it be in your office or in a data center maybe. And nowadays, when we go in and talk to business owners, they don't really care what the technology is behind the scenes. They want to know that it works, their people can get online and send and receive emails, that their core business apps are running, their accounting packages or their CRM platform, their billing platforms run. But they don't necessarily want that equipment running in their office anymore. And in the last dozen years or so, we've seen these public infrastructure companies is what they're called, but the Microsofts, the Amazons, the Googles, the IBMs, their products have become so reliable now that businesses don't really care about having that stuff in their office. So we really help businesses transform and try and become more effective so their people can be online and work from anywhere, can use any device to get online, and have the availability of their business apps on whatever machine they happen to be using at the time. So a business that we might work with, maybe those folks are in the field, are working from home, are working from the road. We have a lot of companies that have a lot of road warriors, and they want to be able to just get access to their data when they need it. And that's where we come in. We figure out how to get them access to what they need when they need it on whatever device they need to make them more efficient and work faster and be more agile.
Okay, great. And then some of the specific things that you're doing, for example, say the restaurant chains, national chains you're dealing with. I don't know if I can mention names. Is it appropriate? Okay. But the national chains you're dealing with are they're even global actually, right?
Yeah.
And so you're integrating services that are provided offshore somewhere else in whether it's not just servers, but it's actually applications and solutions, right? And you're piping it in, and you're having to run crews of people all around, well, either remotely or in-house and get all of this functioning and working, right? I mean, and so you have a lot of should I say, responsibility to make sure that things are running smoothly?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You know, as an example, with anything that's retail, you always have a cash register, right? A point of sale system.
Okay.
Those point of sale systems, if you have one store, it's very easy. You can see the register, you can see the people. But if you think about a kind of a global store locations, you're going to have hundreds, if not thousands, of point of sale systems that every night you need to poll, and you need to keep that history of that polling for months and months historically. Well, that was very common. Even 10, 20 years ago, people could get those cash register data with a modem, and you'd hear it dial up in the middle of the night. But now people are not only getting those cash register receipts and what's going on, but now they're using AI, artificial intelligence, to look at all those and look for, across thousands and thousands of point-of-sale transactions that might be happening, what are the anomalies? Are one restaurant more likely to use a coupon than another? What promotions are running better? And use that data and pull it up into some big data analytics and be able to get reporting on how your business is running. And that's just a way to leverage the cloud and big data and artificial intelligence against some data that the customers already have.
Okay, so, and as a matter of fact, what you're doing is you're allowing them to access that data on a real-time or very near-time basis, right? And then dig into it and dig deep and make better decisions or figure out what to do with the data. Interesting. And so a lot of that comes down to how you collect the data, how you store the data, and what you do with it. Does it present issues? I mean, in your business in particularly, it sounds like a nice business because everything's web-based in a sense, but you got to be out in the field too, installing and dealing with and fixing problems and issues. You have to have your techs running around in a lot of different places, or is it really mostly web-based now? So you're not doing that much anymore.
Yeah, we go through these life cycles with new customers where there's a very intense, very hands-on, physically in their office cycle for the first probably 30 days. And then after that, once things calm down and everybody's onboarded and stabilized, typically we're going out and see them for customer service visits, but most things can be done remote with connecting into people's laptops, connecting into the servers remotely. But absolutely, for those first initial couple of weeks when we're doing onboarding for these customers, I mean, we just came out, we had 10 people physically on site for a customer for 2 weeks straight, just to get them all migrated and onboarded and set up and everything configured.
Good. I want to dig into some of this because it seems to me, and correct me if I'm not characterizing this correctly, but you're a B2B solution, right? Your customers, clients are businesses, right? But in a sense, they're also consumers. And they're consumers because they're individual. First off, you're not a core function of the business. You're something that they need as a consumer, not that they're producing as a producer, right? And it's not a core function, generally speaking. It depends on the business or the industry, but the people you're serving, probably not a core function, right? And so you're dealing with a B2B type client, B2B type solution. And when I say B2B, I mean business to business. But you've got an environment where the expectations are B2C or business to consumer. So there's very high expectations of always on, always delivering perfectly or with good quality and resolving problems quickly and also being available and up and on, right? I mean, is that kind of a good description of your business?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're touching on two different things, I think. One is marketing. How do we market? Because marketing to a business-to-business target customer is very different than business-to-consumer. And the other one is consumption of the product that we have, because we are a service-based business. Our core business is a service. And then how do people consume that service? And it is interesting because many businesses consume our IT services like a B2C, like a consumer-based business. They have very high expectations. I actually took a call on just Labor Day over the last weekend from somebody who is, it wasn't their holiday. It wasn't a long weekend for them. They're at work. Their computer wasn't working, and they needed a resolution. So we actually have to staff 24/7 to be available for whenever the customer demands come in.
That's interesting. Okay, so it's kind of this strange blend of the new technology in the new world versus still some of the old kind of lingering, and some of the traditional ways of doing business are still around. Interesting. Okay, so why don't we do this? I want to take a break for a word from the sponsor real quick. We'll take a break, and then what I'll do is dig in after that, and we'll talk about some of the issues you have. I mean, no business is easy, right? And there's a lot of stuff that goes on. And let's talk, also we'll talk a little bit about how we resolve those issues and what you guys do. I know you're up and growing, fast growing company, and I'm sure that you have some great suggestions on, for other people managers and entrepreneurs, what they can do to get through some of these issues. So let's take a break.
Robert J. Curtis is the founder and CEO of Alpha Quantix, a premier provider of employee analytics and metrics that helps CEOs and managers of middle market companies hire the best, manage the best, and be the best. Robert is a keynote speaker, presenter, moderator, and panel member who regularly appears at conferences, business events, and association meetings nationwide. His presentations provide powerful information that give CEOs and managers of middle market companies valuable insights to improve their hiring and engagement skills. If you'd like Robert to make a personal appearance, he can be contacted by visiting his show's website, bestcompanyshow.com, or by emailing Robert at info@bestcompanyshow.com.
And welcome back to this edition of the Best Companies radio show and podcast. I'm your host, Robert J. Curtis, and I have with me a very special guest from REDNIGHT Consulting. And he's been talking to us a little bit about, the ins and outs of how to, how they do business and what you offer on the web-based world, the kind of the new applications for businesses of how we do business, not the old in the office kind of technology solutions. Let's follow up with this. Okay, before we took a break, we were talking about the management issues and the issues that come up, and you mentioned some things that come up with providing customer service in your own company, for example. I know you have quite a few people running around doing all kinds of different things. And it's when you're dealing with providing a service like you do, and with those high expectations, there must come some challenges. Can you think of any in particular?
Yeah, I mean, we have a few. As a fast-growing business, as you mentioned, there's always growing pains. We've grown very rapidly, and a couple of things that come up is, just making sure that everybody knows exactly what their job role is. As we grow and expand and people's job roles kind of change and divide out, it's really critical for us to kind of have really regular meetings with them to make sure that all of our staff knows what's expected of them, how they're going to interact with the rest of the team. And growing rapidly, and we're bringing new employees on all the time, there's constantly this change happening where we have to integrate new members into our group. Mm-hmm. We don't have hundreds and hundreds of employees yet. And so every time we add 2 or 3 new employees, it's really a big cultural change. So trying to maintain the culture, get them integrated and up to speed quickly is always a challenge. And then getting them out in front of customers to where they feel comfortable, that onboarding for our new employees, making sure that we have something that's being managed very closely for them.
Have you had particular issues that you can think of, particular situations where things haven't worked out right?
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, there's always those situations.
I want to hear about those.
Yeah. As we've grown, I think finding the right balance of employee that we want to bring on, making sure that they fit our culture, making sure that they have the right skill set we're looking for, and doing interviews of new employees are a challenge. We know kind of what we want, but how can we find if that person's going to be a fit in 2, 3, 5 interviews with a bunch of different staff until you really get them in and they start working? Are they going to be a cultural fit? Are they going to kind of meet your core values? We have a very kind of clearly outlined set of core values that we try and match everyone up against. And make sure in the field when they're out facing customers or answering calls from customers on the phone that they're representing us in the right way too.
Have you had particular instances though? For example, give me some insight into how a technology company works. Mm-hmm. and somebody like you and the services you provide. You have to have a situation where people aren't responding properly. They're giving conflicting advice. They're giving they're maybe not in communicating well back with them. You have particular stories or instances where you can remember where those have been challenges?
Yeah, I think, one of the things that we just recently struggled with this last project that I think we're getting better at is because when you're out in front of a customer, and you're on site. We just did a very long engagement at a customer venue where we had to fly, right? So we weren't in our home environment, and we had a good chunk of staff there, probably 7 people on site with this customer for 10 days. Those folks didn't really feel like they were ever having a break, right? Of course, we did lunches and breaks, and at night they have their own time to themselves, but they basically have to be on 24 hours a day for 10 days straight. And we were trying to figure out how to keep people motivated, how to rotate people in and out staffing-wise, and making sure we felt like, man, if we rotate people in, then there's this ramp in and ramp out for each staff member that's being kind of swapped out, and we lose time. It's better to keep one person on for 10 days, 14 days straight, than it is to have 2 people for 7 days. Can they swap like that? And just trying to find this balance so we didn't burn out our employees in one project, so that they're not on for 2 weeks and then they need a month to recover before they can kind of come back to work. And that's been a recent challenge.
That creates
for us.
all kinds of issues too, right? Well, in that scenario, for example, did you have specific instances where you were literally you're out there on the job doing things and you just realized that some of your people couldn't deliver for whatever reason, because they burnout or because of fatigue or whatever you want to call it? Where you really had to on the job in the field, you had to start thinking about this. Wait a second, let's figure out how to solve this problem. I mean, did you have those kind of instances?
Yeah, in this last project, we had a very specific deadline that was a hard deadline where we had to have things up and running and migrated. And the challenge for us was we got in the field and we have dedicated project managers, we have a project plan. We have everything outlined exactly the way we want it to work. And of course, you get in the field and it's kind of like construction. You start opening up the walls and you see what's in there and you go, oh my gosh, there's just unexpected things in here. We've got to make sure that we stay on time and on budget with our project, but we also may have to make sure that we handle all these unexpected, uncharted territories that we get into, and finding that balance of how to prioritize. And then, an engineer who may come on site knows, okay, I'm expected to do A, B, and C, and then we get there, and then we say, oh, man, while you're here, you have to do E, F, G, H, and I also, and you don't have any more time, right? So
so that puts them under stress, right? And then, but you have a deadline, you have to get it done, and so you have to start allocating your resources at that point. Is that kind of what it boils down to?
Yeah, then it's a decision of, do we work longer hours? Do we bring in other resources? Is there another staff member that can help augment that person? But then, what were they assigned to do? And just kind of being nimble on the fly, and having the ability to know everyone's skill set and how to rotate them around, I think is kind of a critical thing for us, being able to substitute and supplement as needed. But people management, what we saw during this last project was just the stress levels get so high in this very small window. Very frequently for us, we've got, in a normal business, people go home on Friday and they want to come back on Monday morning with all their new IT stuff. Well, how do we get that done in that window without just totally melting down our people? Has always been a challenge, right? We can throw more people at it, but then you go over budget. You can try and extend the timelines, but then people go, well, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I can't work on my computers or whatever my business app is. So you've got these kind of constraints you have to work in a very small window. And we're constantly trying to figure out how to do that differently or better, or to expand timelines so we have more time to do those things. Okay,
so it sounds to me like, actually, and it's more than I imagined, I guess, which is this whole 24/7 kind of thing, always on the go. And what I'm wondering in listening to you is, how do you deal with these issues? I mean, what do you do as a manager, as a people manager, to kind of manage this on-the-fly, instant results, high-pressure environment where you have to deliver? Are there techniques and things you've come around to that you figured out?
Yeah, there's 2 things I would touch on. One I would say is the sticky note wall. When we're on site physically in front of customers, we've taken up a very non-tech, non-traditional way to keep track of open items or challenges, and that's just the traditional 3M multicolored sticky note. And man, at this last customer, we had an entire wall covered with these little desktop sticky notes, and everyone was an issue. But it was very easy for us to visually identify what are the open issues, who's going to take ownership or leadership of this issue, and we put it under a sticky note with their name on it.
Okay.
The other thing we've started to do overall as a company, which was very difficult in the beginning, but I would say has paid off for us, is to have daily all-hands meetings. And we try and keep them under 30 minutes. But every single morning, we just did it this morning on my way in before the podcast here, is we get everybody in a room. We talk through some very specific lists of open items. We talk about if anybody has roadblocks or they're stuck on things. And we sit down as a group so everybody can kind of hear the open issues, and we can kind of sense where someone might be stuck or frustrated. We can sense where there's a big a pile of things that aren't getting addressed, and it allows us to daily address issues instead of letting them build up to a weekly or monthly meeting.
Wow. Okay. So wait a second. Every day you have a meeting, and every day you're going through you're going through yesterday's unresolved issues or today's planned business or both.
Yep.
Okay.
Go through both.
And you're spending 30, 40 minutes with all the key people in your teams, various teams or whatever, right? Bringing them all together, and then you're literally allocating on the fly who's responsible for what and how they're going to do it. That takes a lot of time. And to be perfectly honest, I work at a lot of different companies, and I don't know many companies that could effectively manage that on a daily basis. I mean, companies have a hard time doing it even on a weekly basis, right? Much less daily. Number one, that's taken a lot of your resources away from what they're doing. But you really find it's effective and it really works?
Yeah, we struggled with it at first. We kind of mentally budget an hour of everybody's time every single day. So we actually, in our business, we keep very detailed logs of everybody's time because the time is what is billable and we need to keep track of. So we actually, every single person's schedule for 1 hour every day has this meeting blocked out, even if it doesn't take an hour. And we, initially we struggled with what's the format. Does everybody talk? Do we follow a specific schedule? Do people speak up when they have issues? And we played around with the format a little bit, and we finally got to a format that works, that we walk through a very specific outline of what happened yesterday overnight, what happened yesterday during the day, what happened overnight, what's going on today. And we create an outline of open items that need to be addressed above and beyond people's normal jobs, just things that are issues that are cropping up or things that need to be resolved or projects that are going on. And at the beginning of the day, we assign an owner it may not be the person that's going to do the work, but the person that's responsible, the single point of contact. Because if everybody's responsible, nobody's responsible. So we assign an owner. And then at the end of the day, we try and touch base on progress. But worst case, we're touching base the next morning on what happened.
So this isn't just one meeting, really. It could end up being, or it often ends up being, two meetings. One at the beginning of the day, one at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's correct. Usually the end of the day ones are kind of teams regrouping on, hey, tomorrow morning we're going to have to address this in the meeting, that it got resolved or didn't. So we need to know the status of it to kind of prepare for the next morning meeting. But really, yeah, every morning it's a meeting at 8 a.m. We have everybody in there.
Okay, now let's compare this, for example, to what you were doing before. Or in other situations. Obviously, before you founded the company here, Red Knight Consulting, you were working for other companies in-house and various other things. So you've seen this in various environments. Let's compare and contrast. What's the advantage, what are the disadvantages to doing your management that way?
Yeah, you hit on one of the disadvantages, which is you're consuming everybody's time, whether they have input or not, or they're speaking or not in that meeting. It's taking an hour away from their day where they could be, for us, doing a support ticket or making a sale or doing a project management task. So for sure, it's a time drain. The flip side for us is that communication, that daily drip of communication where everybody knows or overhears what's going on in the other departments. They don't have to overhear it in the hallways. They're kind of getting it directly. And we have a platform that we've stood up that's a video conferencing platform. It's pretty inexpensive. And even if people aren't physically in the building, in the conference room, they can call in, they can video in. We try and get everybody on video if we can, so we can see their faces. There's a lot of communication that happens through visual expression, people's eyes rolling when we're talking about things. So I think the benefit for us is everybody kind of knows what's going on in the business, even if it's not something that directly affects their jobs. The downside is it takes a little bit of time. We absolutely do have to put some prep planning into it for 5 or 10 minutes before we start that meeting. So it does take up everybody's time, but the payoff is I believe that we're more efficient and we can prioritize issues that may be cropping up on a daily basis. We can tackle them when they happen, and it's not getting to be a week or a month later before we even address it.
Okay, so I'm going to play devil's advocate here. And I think of that as kind of an old school, traditional method of managing. And actually it's very good, especially if it's implemented on a daily basis. I think you guys are doing great. But there are lots of new technologies. We've right before the show here, we talked about Slack, for example, and some of those things that are going on out there. And I've had prior guests talk about how they use Slack, and it's made the communication so more effective, and they're real-time basis. They're much more integrated, and they're much more effective. Wouldn't that be a great solution for you? Wouldn't that be something that answers this and also doesn't take the people offline for an hour every day?
We use Slack. I mean, it's our core communication, instant messaging platform. Absolutely, it's brought a lot of communication out of email. We do a lot less emailing now. People are getting real-time updates on what's going on with projects in the field or support tickets, or somebody's looking for a piece of information. We even have bots set up inside our Slack. So if somebody's looking for the Wi-Fi password, you just type Wi-Fi password and it comes right back and tells you what it is. You don't have to wait for someone to respond.
Okay.
So those things work great, but I don't believe that they are a consistent way to communicate who's going to own what and open issues and problems. You get more extracted out of people with a couple of seconds of silence in a meeting where you ask, what open issues do we have? And then you just stop talking and listen until somebody speaks up. Somebody will come up with an issue that needs to be resolved, whereas they're not going to actively put that into a Slack channel. And to be honest with you, we use Slack so much. My phone's in my pocket right now. I can feel it vibrating walking its way out of my pocket. I probably have 50 Slack messages just in our interview right now. It starts to become communication overload at some point if you don't control it very strictly with how you're going to use it, with channels or breakdowns of who communicates what topics in what places. We had to create a whole separate channel inside Slack just for people goofing off and putting comics and telling jokes that a lot of people mute out, but it is a community for people to talk about things in our environment, and it is part of our culture, but it doesn't solve the same purpose of having this daily all hands meeting where we can talk about overall business issues.
Okay, that's interesting. That's very interesting, because I guess when it comes down to it, we really do need to merge new technologies with our old traditional ways of doing business, and those new technologies like Slack and some of these other things that you actually install and employ for your clients, and not only that, you're doing it in-house. Those kind of solutions have to find their way into our traditional management styles and things like that seem to work on their own, and maybe find a way to integrate and make us be more productive. As a matter of fact, why don't we do this? Why don't we take another break? Before we take a break, I want to do one thing which I didn't do at the top of this segment, which is what I love to do, is Chris Ploessel, Red Knight Consulting. I want you to tell us, how do we reach you if we want to talk to you and find out about what you do and how you do it? Yeah,
absolutely. Email is the best avenue. Chris, CHRIS, at red like the color, night like the time of day, consulting, REDNIGHT, CONSULTING.com.
Wow. Any phone numbers? Anything like that? Any other way to reach you? Is it really the email?
Yeah, our main business number is 949-464-7330, and that rings to the office, and you'll get somebody there during normal business hours, Monday through Friday. We're always got staff there in the office taking support calls.
Awesome, great. Okay, so we're going to take a break right now. Well, actually, wait a second. Before we take a break, I want to introduce myself and what we do. I am Robert Curtis, your host, and I work with a company called Alpha Quantix, my company, and we provide solutions on people management and also data and analytics for people, and trying to help people managers do a better job. And you can reach me through, I guess the best way is at thebestcompanyshow.com. And you can info at bestcompanyshow.com email, or through LinkedIn, Robert J. Curtis at LinkedIn, and you'll be able to find me there. I'd be glad to open any dialogues, have any comments. Would love to hear feedback on the show and how you like it and what you would like to see for guests and things like that. But why don't we do this? We'll take a quick break right now, and we're going to come back, and I'm going to throw a hot seat question out. I thought of one while you were talking, Chris. I've got a great hot seat question for you on people management issues and integrating new technology with old management styles. So let's dig into that.
I'm excited.
Okay.
Robert J. Curtis is the founder and CEO of Alpha Quantix, a premier provider of employee analytics and metrics that helps CEOs and managers of middle market companies hire the best, manage the best, and be the best. Robert is a keynote speaker, presenter, moderator, and panel member who regularly appears at conferences, business events, and association meetings nationwide. His presentations provide powerful information that give CEOs and managers of middle market companies valuable insights to improve their hiring and engagement skills. If you'd like Robert to make a personal appearance, he can be contacted by visiting his show's website, bestcompanyshow.com, or by emailing Robert at info@bestcompanyshow.com.
And welcome back to the Best Company Show. And I'm here with Chris Ploessel of REDNIGHT Consulting, and we're talking about tech issues in general. Because he's a tech company and he provides tech services to a lot of leading, consumer retail and restaurant groups and things like that. But here it's time now for our hot seat question, and something that ties into what we've been talking about actually really well. I'm surprised. 2 articles that I've read recently, just in the last week. One of them talks about Google coming out with some new solutions. They're integrating AI, artificial intelligence, into customer service platforms and using AI to kind of bypass or help out and assist with those long, dialing queues where you have to punch number 2 for this and number 3 for that, and getting people to answer quicker, so that you can get to the point, which is what I need to do, so that you can get your answer quickly, and it's automated and with an artificial intelligence solution, right? And so they're really promoting this. This is a new push for them just in the last few weeks, and that's great product. Apparently works really well. At the same time, literally within an hour of reading and trying to keep up on the news, I noticed an article about T-Mobile. And T-Mobile is now taking a new position, and they're trying to beat out their competition. And the way that they're trying to beat out their competition is not by employing a solution like Google's AI customer service, by actually hiring more boots on the ground, hiring actual people to answer the phone and provide better direct customer service. And they're training them up, and they figured that this is going to give them a competitive edge, that their competitors won't come up to play ball with them. They won't match them with the level of customer service. And so that's interesting. Now, you're a tech guy. Your job is to install and make these things work. And you just got done telling me a few minutes ago that a lot of your management secret, the way that you keep your company on track, is a traditional, old school way of doing business. But you also employ the new technology. How are we going to get this? How is this going to integrate? How are we going to make this work? And what's going to happen to Google here if T-Mobile and some big companies like this are just bypassing solutions that they could provide? You tell me, how does this all go? Where does it take us?
Yeah, I think like any technology, there's going to be an acceptance or an adoption bell curve, right? You got your early adopters, your mainstream, and your tail laggards. And the most popular thing that we at the very forefront of technology are seeing right now is bots and chat and voice response, right? And those are the technologies you're seeing in your homes, your Alexas, your Siris, your Google Assistants. And you're seeing people very naturally interact with them, asking questions about the weather, the news, stock information, even to the point where it's suggesting information that you might like this story, you might like this music. And that's being taken into the business front. And you're seeing a lot of customer service agencies that have to do very large volumes of calls, thousands and thousands of calls an hour even, start to look at these to make them more cost effective. The airlines, the credit cards, the bankers of the world. And I think it's has a very high potential of working. It's still very early. I think on a small scale, I think people want to talk to someone who's knowledgeable, who can solve their problem quickly. And if that can be done with technology, people will adopt it. But if that technology kind of fumbles, or it's just a delay to stall to get to a customer service agent, that way of implementing it isn't going to be adopted well. But there was very recently some controversial stuff that came out of Google at one of their events where they showed Google Assistant actually calling out and making a hair salon appointment for someone. And someone said, "Hey, Google, make me a hair appointment." And you could hear the voice on the other end go out and call a hair salon, ask for an appointment, ask for certain times, ask for certain styles in their hair appointment. And the person on the other end of the phone didn't know it was an AI calling. And so we're starting to get to the point where it's so natural that the person on the other end of the phone doesn't know that it's a computer anymore. And I think that's where you're going to get some good adoption. But it's also where it starts to scare some people, right? That now they don't know if they're talking to a real person or a computer because it's getting so realistic. So we're going to have to balance that line a little bit, but I do think that there's a way to use technology to make your business more efficient with a voice response.
So obviously, what I would expect is you're an advocate for technology, just properly employed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. Wonderful. Okay. Thank you for those thoughts, Chris. I really appreciate it. Once again, how are we going to reach you if we want to reach you?
Yeah, Chris, CHRIS, at rednightconsulting.com.
Okay.
Or at our main phone number, 949-464-7330. And, of course, we're on all the social media channels as well.
Okay, awesome. And this is Robert Curtis from The Best Company Show and my company, Alpha Quantix. Thanking everybody for watching and listening to our show. We really appreciate having you as an audience. We appreciate your feedback. And also thank you very much to Paul Roberts, my engineer, who does a great job getting us on the air every day or every week for the show, and also taking care of a lot of other things, as well as my producer, Roland Canamar of Silver Dream Factory, and all other contributions he and his team make. I really appreciate it from everybody, and thank you very much. May your businesses be the best they can be.
You've been listening to The Best Company Show, Southern California's business podcast, focusing on topics of interest to CEOs and managers of middle market companies, with your host, Robert J. Curtis.
He used to pester me for a walk. Now it's the other way around.
Hoag physicians perform more orthopedic procedures than any other hospital in Orange County. Our orthopedic program, in fact, ranks among the top 5 in the entire country. So whatever it is you live for, you can get back to it sooner. Because as it turns out, the best part of life is simply living it. Hoag for life. Visit us at www.hoag.org.